welcome to the Blindfold Chess Podcast. Garry Kasparov is widely regarded as one of the greatest chess players of all time. Born in Baku, Azerbaijan in 1963, Kasparov began playing chess at a young age and quickly rose as a prodigy. In 1978, he participated in the Sokolsky Memorial and took home first place to become a master at the age of 16. Later that year, he qualified for and won the 64-person Swiss system USSR Chess Championship, the youngest to do so. At the age of 19, he was the second highest-rated player in the world and the youngest candidate to the World Championship since Bobby Fischer. When he was 21, he became the number one rated player in the world and held that spot for 12 years. He won his way through the candidates and qualified to play Karpov for the World Championship. The World Championship of 1984 was structured in a first-to-six wins format. After 9 games, Karpov was winning 4-0. Kasparov then fought back, winning 3 games. The president of FIDE then stepped in and stopped the 48-game match of the World Championship, citing the effect of the player's health. For reference, the 2023 World Championship was 14 games. This remains the only World Championship to be abandoned without a result. Later, in 1985, a new World Championship match was started between Karpov and Kasparov. This time, Kasparov won in 24 games, 13-11, becoming the youngest world champion ever. Kasparov remained on top of the chess world for over a decade, holding the World Championship title from 1985 to 1993, and then again from 1995 to 2000. His achievements and tournament wins are far too numerous to mention here, so we'll examine a couple of other key moments of his career. Shortly after he reached the pinnacle of the chess world, he created the Grandmasters Association to give more representation to professional players for FIDE. FIDE did not like that, and in 1993, both Nigel Short and Kasparov broke away from FIDE and created their own version of the World Championship under the banner the Professional Chess Association. This resulted in 2 different world champions being crowned for a period of time, one under the PCA and one under FIDE. The split was eventually healed in 2006. Kasparov later said in an interview with DNA India that, "My decision in 1993 to break away from the World Chess Federation, FIDE, with Nigel Short was the worst mistake of my career." During this time, Kasparov also played a number of famous exhibition matches against computers, including his famous matches against the IBM computer Deep Blue in 1996 and 1997. While he lost the second match, these matches helped to popularize chess and demonstrate the ability of artificial intelligence. In an interview with Checkmate Henry, Kasparov noted that, quote, "Losing to Deep Blue was physically painful. Losing in 1997 was not the first match that I lost to a machine, it was the first match that I had lost, period." Kasparov retired from competitive chess in 2005, but remained involved in the chess world as a commentator, writer, and advocate for the game. He also became increasingly involved in politics, particularly in Russia. In 2005, Kasparov founded the United Civil Front, a political movement that advocated for democracy and human rights in Russia. He was a vocal critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin and was arrested and imprisoned several times for his activism. Throughout his career, Kasparov has been a powerful and influential figure both in the world of chess and in the broader political sphere. This week, we are traveling back to 1988 during the second round of the 55th USSR Championship. Garry Kasparov versus Vasily Ivanchuk. Now, if we're ready, let's begin.
1. Pawn to c4. Knight f6. 2. Knight c3. Pawn to e5. 3. Knight f3. Knight c6. 4. Pawn to g3. Bishop b4. 5. Bishop g2. Kingside castle. 6. Kingside castle.
What key central squares is Kasparov trying to control with this version of the English opening? That would be d5 and e4. Through the pawn on c4, the knight on c3, and the bishop on g2, Kasparov is trying to control the light squares in the center of the board.
Pawn to e4. 7. Knight g5. Bishop captures c3. 8. Pawn b captures c3. Rook e8. 9. Pawn to f3. Pawn e captures f3. 10. Knight captures f3. Pawn to d5. 11. Pawn to d4. Knight e4. 12. Queen c2. Pawn d captures c4. 13. Rook b1.
Why do you think white played rook to b1 here? Playing the rook to b1 puts the rook on a semi-open file, attacking the b7 pawn, and it also causes black some headache of how to defend that pawn. Do you make a concession in the position by moving the pawn forward? Do you have to move the rook to b8? Or do you move the light-squared bishop and allow it to be taken?
Pawn to f5. 14. Pawn to g4. Queen e7. 15. Pawn g captures f5. Knight d6. 16. Knight g5. Queen captures e2. 17. Bishop d5 check. King h8. 18. Queen captures e2. Rook captures e2. 19. Bishop f4. Knight d8.
This knight retreat to d8 looks a little funny, but what key squares does the knight cover? The knight is actually doing a lot of work here. It is covering the f7 square, targeted by the white knight and the light-squared bishop. They are also covering the e6 square, covered by the same knight and bishop, as well as the pawn on f5. The knight is also covering the pawn on b7, which is attacked by the light-squared bishop, and the rook on b1.
20. Bishop captures d6. Pawn c captures d6. 21. Rook b2 e1.
White finally moves his rook off of the b file to give black a little bit of a release in pressure. For the past 10 moves, white has used his rook to tie down black's rook and bishop. So for the past 10 moves, white has essentially been playing up a piece. So now we will see Kasparov exchanging a development advantage for a space and initiative advantage.
Rook captures e1. (22) Rook captures e1. Bishop d7. (23) Rook e7. Bishop c6. (24) Pawn to f6. Black resigns.
Can you see why black resigned here? There are essentially two branching paths. Try to take a moment to figure that out. The first one would be pawn on g7 takes on f6, where white would respond with rook captures h7, checkmate. The second line would be bishop captures on d5, white responds with rook to e8, check, bishop to g8, and then you can play f7, which pins the bishop against the king and threatens to promote with checkmate. So black would play knight on d8 captures f7, and white would play knight captures f7, checkmate. It is hard to understand where the chess world would be without Garry Kasparov. He has brought many people into the chess world. He has trained many strong players like Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura, and he also helped bring to light issues that were happening in the chess world. So that is all that we have for this week. Tune in next time where we will continue to work on our blindfold skills and look at another game of the Masters.